Okay, hi everyone, Editing Mickey here. So as it turns out, this video is kind of a beast even with all of the editing down that we did. So the upside of this is that you get half of the video early. This will be part one. That's why it's being uploaded on Wednesday, because I wanted to say thank you to you guys for being so receptive and for being patient while I took some time to take care of myself. The part one is being uploaded today, and then part two will be uploaded on Saturday as per usual at 10 a.m. like we normally do. So thank you. I hope that you guys enjoy this, and on with the video. This is one of the areas that I wanted to highlight because I think this is really successful and a great example of how to apologize effectively. And I kind of wish that we had just just cut this down to that section. Okay, all right, hi everybody. Thank you for coming back, or if you are new here, my name is Mickey. I am a therapist, and we talk about therapist-y things on this channel. So we have not done a therapist rates a YouTuber apology video in a hot minute, so we're doing one today because Jimmy Snow has landed himself in a bit of a predicament. I want to be really clear from the jump. This is the first time that a YouTuber has truly broken me. We have covered a couple apologies that are rough on this channel before, but this was a journey to get this shit together. So here's all of the disclaimers up front. Please just listen to the disclaimers. The original video that Jimmy uploaded was 1 hour and 18 minutes long. I cannot and will not sit through 1 hour and 18 minutes and react to every single thing point by point. A, because that's exhausting, but B, then we would have somewhere between 3 and 4 hours of raw footage and maybe hopefully edit that down to like 2.5, maybe 2 hours of a finished video and even split into parts. Like, that's wild. And quite honestly, I don't have the energy or like time to devote to that. So here's the deal. We condensed the apology quite a bit. This clip that we've edited down is under 20 minutes. So please hear me loud and clear when I say that this does not afford all of the context of the apology. If you are looking for a thorough explanation of the apology, I would encourage you to go other places. I might even link some channels in the description who have shared information and kind of recapped the situation, but this is not that. We are purely talking about the apology and the language and conflict resolution and like the skills associated with that, which is another disclaimer that I wanted to talk about. I have been thinking a lot about the YouTuber apology video thing, and I realized that I never really clarified or explained fully what my hope was with making these videos. So I want to clarify that. I am not trying to position myself as like a beacon of morality because I'm a therapist. I don't want people to walk away from these videos with the impression that I am saying whether someone is a good or bad person or whether they are right or wrong. That's not the point here. We're talking about apologies and how to use language effectively to navigate conflict resolution. And we're using these apologies as an example and like a real life lived experience of what it looks like to either apologize effectively or ineffectively. And we're talking about how you can apply those skills and those tools in your life as like a person who's like not a YouTuber, obviously. So I want to be clear with this video, with all of the past videos, I don't want to give anyone the impression that I am labeling anyone as a good or bad person, as like, whether their apology is right or wrong. That's not for me to say. All of the human experience is subjective, and so everyone is allowed to feel how they feel. It is okay. If you agree or disagree with me, or you agree or disagree with Jimmy Snow or any of the other apologies that we've covered, that's not the purpose of this. We're purely just talking about this so that we can educate a little bit about how to use language and conflict resolution tools and all of those things. That said, we're going to watch some clips that my husband and I have spent many hours watching through Jimmy Snow's apology that I think are the most relevant that I want to talk about as examples. I've watched this apology, honest to God, probably a dozen times from start to finish over the last 3 days. So I've had it. I'm ready to be done. And so I think let's just get into it. Okay, so before we get started, actually, I want to talk about the rubric that we're going to use. This is a graphic that I have made that was inspired by a graphic that we used to use that was made by Dr. Lauren Fogel Mercy. Essentially, this is just a graphic that has a list of things that are either helpful or unhelpful in the pursuit of making an effective apology. Again, I want to be clear that this graphic is not an exhaustive list of all of the things that you should or should not do. It's a graphic. It's meant to be helpful and informative, and we use it for the purposes of this so that we have kind of like a little checklist as we go through and watch. Okay, here we go.
Regarding the criticisms I've received, some of the things I actually do agree with. Took me a while to get there, but yeah, I'm there. I believe there are things I did wrong, but there are also narratives about me being pushed out there that aren't just wrong, they are really, really hurtful. So I just want to ask you this. If you are one of the people who has been so mad and really wanting me to admit to times I was wrong, you're going to get to see some of that. But I also want you to be open to the idea that you might have been wrong about some things too.
Okay. This is very much a mixed bag, and as we watch, I think you guys will pick up the theme that this apology feels very much like one and then the other. Like there are moments of this apology. That's another thing I wanted to clarify, by the way. I'm not sure if he intended this to be an apology because it's not clearly labeled. I'm not sure if he's trying to make this more of an explanation than an apology per se. So maybe we're evaluating something that's not an apology, but whatever. This this apology is like filled with moments where it's like, oh, never mind. Because there's a lot of but in here, and that's one of the things that's on our graphic that like immediately we're just gonna put an X over that one because there are things that I've done wrong, but there are also narratives that are being spun about me, blah blah blah. That is a thing that he harps on throughout this video that we will talk about in greater detail later. But as a general rule, when we are apologizing, it's important to keep in mind that your ego is not the thing that matters here. Apologies require us to humble ourselves and to let go of that impulse that we have to be like, well, but it was, I did it because, or like, well, it's all right. And I didn't really mean it that way. So, because that's not helpful. If we really want to repair the hurt that we've caused, we have to be willing to let go of being right. And it's okay to admit that you're wrong. That's a very human thing. And it is a very human tendency to like latch onto this explanation and rationalization for why what I did is okay. But if you want your apology to be well received and you're truly trying to center the feelings of the person that you've hurt, it would behoove you to let go of the ego part of that, because when you're focusing on yourself, you can't center the feelings of somebody else. So this is very much that. I'm very much frustrated by the inclusion of what he believes are false narratives being spun about him, because in my opinion, that's irrelevant. And it doesn't really serve the overall purpose of repairing the broken trust and the hurt feelings that his subscribers and his followers have. So not so great so far.
So let me start here. I absolutely think I did things wrong, but I'm also resentful of a lot of conspiracies and jumps to conclusions that people have come up with.
This is what I'm talking about. I absolutely believe I've done things wrong, but look at everyone else though. It's not about that. And this is another thing that's really important to talk about with an apology. When we do something that hurts people's feelings, people don't always react well. That does not mean that you're allowed to justify your behavior, though. When someone reacts poorly to you crossing their boundary, hurting their feelings, saying or doing something that is hurtful, that doesn't mean that you get to be like, well, sure, I did some things wrong, but look at you. No, that's not the point here. That person may need to apologize for how they reacted to your apology later, and that's something that you can voice at a later time. But again, in order for the apology to be effective and for a person to feel like you're really making the effort to center them, now is not the time or place. You have to be willing to let that go and say, I will have the opportunity to voice my feelings another time, but this is not that. I care more about preserving this relationship and making this interaction successful than I do about serving my own ego. And that's not the vibes that I get from this at all.
I'm not going to address all of them. I honestly couldn't if I wanted to. There's too many now. But if you are one of the people who started creating conspiracies about my personal life or about my current relationship especially, I'm actually not trying to save you as a subscriber at all, and you can go. The rage I felt seeing those kinds of things and how it hurt my partner also, yeah, if my problem here is that I can't humble myself enough to get over that, then I'm just going to accept that that's a character flaw of mine because I straight up have contempt for the things that I had to read.
This is another thing that's on our little graphic. Don't make it about you. It's not about you. He's centering his feelings and the feelings of his partner and really dedicating a lot of time and airspace to talk about how much rage and contempt he has. But if I walked into this apology with no idea of what had happened or taken place already, I'd be like, what's happening here? There's not really been a lot of accountability or responsibility taken for the things that he said or done. We've kind of just gotten like the vague admission of like, yeah, sure, I've done some things wrong. But like what though? And that's another important thing about an apology, is to use clear language. It can be hard and it's very uncomfortable to list specifically the things that you said or did that were hurtful. But in the pursuit of having that conflict resolved effectively, it's good to say, I understand that this specific thing that I did hurt your feelings or caused you to feel this way. Because if we're not speaking in specifics, everyone might walk away from the apology feeling kind of confused and like, well, did they actually apologize? Or like, I don't really understand. And we kind of get into that territory of like someone apologizing or feeling bad because they got caught, as opposed to understanding what they did wrong and feeling bad for the thing that they did. So the vague language here is a little bit frustrating to me, but we'll talk about it.
Regarding saving anyone else as a subscriber, I don't think that's why I'm doing this time. Obviously, I think I pretty much said so, that I was trying something like that the first time. I thought by sharing and being open, it would stop the narratives going around, and as I said in the video, I was motivated to try and protect my business. But this time is not that. This time, I am motivated by the fact that many people have adopted in their mind a character of me that isn't me.
And that therein lies the problem. If your motivation for making an apology is to correct what you believe are false assumptions about your character, back it up. We are not ready to make an apology. And again, I'm not sure if he intended this to be an apology or not, but for the sake of talking about apologies generally, if you're walking into that interaction feeling like, I'm gonna fucking set this bitch straight, no, that's not the point. Because here's the thing, you're allowed to feel how you feel. That's very human. And I think especially on a public platform, it's really hard to have people say and do or say and believe hurtful shit about you that you feel is not accurate, right? But this is the thing that comes up with these videos again and again. You're allowed to feel that way, but voice that with your support people in your private life and your therapist, and like, keep that shit off the internet. This is not the time or place for you to voice how frustrated you are by the inequities of existing as a public figure on the internet. Not that no one cares, but like, this is not about that. And it also does not serve your purpose of making an effective or healthy apology, because again, you're making it about you, you're centering your own feelings. This doesn't lend itself to taking full accountability or responsibility, which are two things that we have on the rubric also. It really is not, it's not doing what he thinks it's doing.
First of all, let me say this. I shouldn't have made that video at all. It was a mistake, and it was one I made in the heat of the moment when I was mad at Rachel for saying things in an interview about me that I didn't agree with. I want to say directly to Rachel and Rachel only right now, I'm sorry I made that video.
This is one of the areas that I wanted to highlight because I think this is really successful and a great example of how to apologize effectively. And I kind of wish that we had just just cut this down to that section, because we used specific language. We took full accountability. He honored the impact of what he said and did. He used the words, I'm sorry. There was no but, there was no deflection. This was just like a clear, I fucked it up. This was not the right thing to do. And I want to say, I'm sorry. I think this is great. It's not going to stay great, but this is something that I wanted to highlight and like give Jimmy credit and kudos for, because I think, again, this is a good example. And if you're looking for an example of what a good apology can look like from a public figure, that's that.
I really feel like I needed to do something, but I should have at least tried to reach out and ask if we could talk privately. So the number one reason I turned off comments was this, and many of you still won't agree with it. It isn't that I can't receive any criticism or that I want to make sure no one ever sees a negative thing. It was that the narratives being spun in the comments I felt weren't accurate. People were making...
Okay, this is kind of an aside. This is just something that I wanted to address, because when I first saw that he uploaded a second apology video, I was very intrigued. I watched it at like 2 times speed because I'm a busy lady and was shocked by how long it is. But after I watched it, I had this weird feeling in my stomach, and I told my husband, I really want to cover this and talk about this, because I think this is the first example of a YouTuber apology we've seen that isn't like comically bad. You know, like the Jeffree Star one and the David Dobrik one, just like so bad. Like FF minus. It doesn't even come close to what a good apology should look like, you know? But this, I think, if you dropped this into a real life situation that didn't have anything to do with YouTube or cameras or like a public platform, this is one of those apologies that in theory, as on the receiving end, you'd be like, it seems like he apologized. You would walk away feeling like, okay, like he apologized. I don't feel better, but I guess he like did the thing, so it's probably fine. And this is why I want to highlight the very like back and forth nature of this, because this is the tendency that people have in real life where we try to apologize and say and do the thing when we humble ourselves, but we have a really hard time doing that. And so oftentimes when people say like, oh, I'm sorry, or they take some level of accountability, we as the person who's supposed to be receiving the apology feel compelled to be like, well, they did good enough and it's okay. And like, this is why you would walk away from that apology not feeling good, because we still spend an awful lot of time talking about how Jimmy feels, what's going on for Jimmy. And he reminds us many, many times that he's not doing well, that he's gone to dark places, he's not taking it okay, that he's having a hard time. And like, I believe that all of that is true. But again, that's something that Jimmy should be hosting conversations and asking for support from the people in his personal life, from his therapist, from like all of the people not on the internet. This is not the time or place to be doing that. And I think it really undermines the usefulness of the apology here.
Claims about me that weren't true, and even if that was their honest assessment, I didn't have time to take on and correct each one. And if I'd tried, I probably would have fucked that up anyway.
This is something else that I wanted to talk about, because when someone says something like this, what I hear, especially if a client said this to me in session, I would be like, okay, what I'm hearing you say is that you have a desire to control the way that people perceive you. And I don't mean control as in he wants to control people, but like not in an abusive way, but like in an anxiety way, where we have a desire to influence the way that people see us. There's fear and there's anxiety there, I think. Again, that's very human and very normal, but it is frustrating to me that that's being used as a rationalization for why he's behaving the way that he is. I feel like this could have been more effectively stated, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but the like round and round of like how hard it is for him to sit with people not understanding him and not appreciating his previous activism and just defaming his character is a losing battle. When we do this thing where we are really committed to people seeing us in a particular way, it causes us to behave in ways that aren't actually in line with us being a good person, because it creates this air of desperation where we have to like silence people and make it stop, and like I can't deal with people perceiving me as being not a good person. And this is why, again, I say that like this is for Jimmy and his support people and his therapist to work out and not to be aired publicly on the internet, because A, this doesn't serve the purpose of an apology, but B, I think there's some more reflection work to be done here before an effective apology could really be made, which he does own later, but still.
Like, I don't know if you've all noticed, I'm not right now doing very good at responding to people that I'm mad at for misrepresenting me. But I will tell you, this is now something I have brought up in therapy, and we're actually like dedicating a lot of the foreseeable future to try and fix that. So while I'm definitely here to also talk about the things I did wrong, turning off the comments on that is actually not one I regret, but maybe my communication about it, that I probably do. And I also acknowledge that it made people feel like I didn't want to hear things that I don't agree with. I hope you'll be happy to know that, first of all, even the comments that got deleted and blocked, I read most of them. Part of why I'm not doing great. Second, I have now had conversations with creators and experts that I felt could help me figure out what I did and didn't do wrong. I didn't just seek criticism. At a certain point, I did go, I need to find criticism, but it has to be qualified criticism, because even large groups on the internet that, again, if they stemmed from narratives that came from other places, it just doesn't work. So I went and sought criticism from, like I said, other creators and qualified people.
Can we just like roll the clip?
I accept my criticism from talented, smart people, not abusive, toxic, exploitative bullies on YouTube.
This is something, when I first watched this, that stuck out to me. Felt weird about this statement, and I couldn't really put my finger on why. And as I thought about it more, I realized that this was suspiciously similar to something that we had heard before. And so I feel compelled to point out this. I'm sure other people have pointed out this similarity also, but I feel like that's worth noting. I will say, with an apology, it's helpful for the language to be yours and your own, and to come from a genuine and authentic place. also in our rubric. And so if we're parroting the feelings and opinions of other people in an apology, that's not really serving your purpose either. But I also strongly disagree with this idea that criticism should only come from qualified people or experts. I'm not saying that you have to take every criticism from every person home with you and hold it close to your heart. That's totally fair to be selective about who you're accepting feedback from. But this comes off as such an elitist thing to say, almost as if to say, like, all of you who are watching this channel, you're not the experts who I'm willing to accept criticism from. I'm only going to accept my feedback from other people who I perceive to be on my level, and like A, not very useful from like a PR standpoint, but B, not super helpful in an apology to issue the backhanded like thanks for your feedback, but you're not the expert that I was looking for feedback from thing. Like, big yikes. So I wanted to point that out and talk about that because it's not a good look.
But some of you on an individual level probably feel slighted by me. And in some cases, I totally did slight you. But I do want you to know for 95+% of you, it was not at all personal. However, I still...
This is another, okay, again with the word but also the it wasn't personal thing. This is a really common way for people to justify shitty behavior and to say like, oh, it was a me thing, it wasn't a you thing, or it wasn't personal, I didn't mean it that way. This is a little bit talking about the intent here. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you intended it to be personal or not, because people took it personally, clearly. People felt personally wounded by that. And so this is something that's important with apologies, is to own the actual impact of the thing as opposed to what your intended impact is. And this is something we get a lot of comments and questions about every time we cover an apology, usually being that like, well, I find it helpful when people tell me what their intent was when they're apologizing. And that may well be true, and I think that's fair. But the issue that we can get into with intent is that when someone says something about like, oh, you know, it wasn't intended to be personal, basically the implied meaning there is, well, it wasn't personal, and so don't take it that way. Or kind of like I'm trying to excuse myself from the responsibility because I didn't mean it that way, so it's probably fine. And like, no, because regardless of whether you meant it personally, people took it personally. And if we want to make the effective apology and really allow people to feel heard, we have to own that, yes, I did not intend that to be personal. However, it is clear that you took it personally. And for that, I'm so, so sorry. I understand now why that would feel personal to you. And I recognize that that was the wrong thing to say. So I am really sorry that I hurt your feelings in that way. See how that feels different? Like that hits very different on a personal level from someone that you care about, for them to say like, oh my God, fuck, I did not mean that as a personal insult, but I totally see it now. Like if I back up and think about it, of course you would feel like personally attacked by that. And so like, I get it. I'm very sorry. This is not that, and it doesn't carry the same feeling or the same meaning. It's essentially saying like, oh, I didn't mean it that way. So like, why are you upset? Not helpful. Not an effective way to apologize.
I want to say to you that if you felt betrayed by me, and you are, especially those people who have supported me for so long, only to have me turn on you by deleting you or blocking you, I am actually sorry. And I'm sorry for how the feelings that invoked.
This bothers me a little bit because it's essentially a more intellectual version of, I'm sorry you feel that way. We'll let it slide because I don't know that he meant it that way. But the other thing about this that I wanted to talk about though, this is timestamped weird because this is the clipped version. Someone else pointed this out on one of their commentary videos and I thought it was a very astute observation. It's frustrating and a little bit hurtful that in order for the person, you know, like a subscriber or a former follower or supporter of Jimmy, in order for that person to get the I'm sorry from Jimmy, you had to watch through like 30 fucking minutes of footage at this point, of monetized footage, mind you. And I don't want to ding the guy for monetizing. I get it. It's a business thing. He has staff and a lifestyle to support, and I think that's totally fair. However, I think we could have structured this in a way that served the purpose a little bit better. I recognize that this is getting into nitpicky territory, but I think it might be helpful as in a personal thing, in a personal way, and as a public figure, to structure your apology where the meat and potatoes is at the front end. The real important shit that you need to get on the table and out in the open, the like using the words I'm sorry, taking accountability, owning the impact, put that at the front. put that right at the top of your speech and then say, you know, listen, I have an explanation and some context that I'd like to offer you. If that's okay with you, can I talk about it? Or in this case, to say, if anyone is interested in why I did this or wants an explanation, that will be at the tail end of this video and you can watch that. But here's the meat and potatoes, like right off of the bat. I think that would be more effective and honestly like lend itself to a little bit more authenticity, in my opinion. So I'm frustrated that in order for someone to really get the apology, you have to like basically line his pockets for 30 minutes before you get there. That's not the best.
For the record, the Jimmy Snow you have seen recently that you don't like, I don't really like that guy either. And I hope you're going to understand that I already knew that negative profiles of me were being painted in a lot of places. And I needed to universally shut that off my channel because truly, it just felt like it was coming from everywhere and people were poisoning the well.
This is something that's very frustrating to me because, again, we're talking about Jimmy's emotions and how he feels, which is not helpful here. I do believe that that's genuine and authentic, though. It does seem like he really means that. And so, like, fair enough. But I wish that he would have stated this differently because to me, this is such a human thing. This is something that I can very much understand and I think is very fair, you know? He found himself in this situation where he made a video that blew up in his face and it caused him to confront all of these criticisms and weird feelings about himself and his identity, and it was like very overwhelming for him. But I wish that he would have said, you know, listen, I fucked it up. I'm sorry. I uploaded a video and people did not take it well, and so I freaked out. So I turned the comments off. I turned the like to dislike ratio off because I was having a fucking meltdown. And that's a very human thing. I'm working on it. I own that that was not the right thing to do, but I want to apologize for the impact that that caused. That was not cool. I recognize that I violated some people's trust and caused you to feel silenced and unheard, and that was not okay. And so it won't happen again. I am doing some reflection and I'm working on it, and like, we're going to move forward in the best way that I know how and like accepting your guys' feedback. That's like so much more effective in my opinion. But instead of doing that, he uses his emotion and his like overwhelm and freak out in that moment as a way to justify the decision that he made, which is not helpful. This is what I'm saying, where we got like so close. Just like so close, and then we just like fucking 180-degree turn the other direction to say like, and that's why I'm allowed to do whatever I want. And like, no, sir, that's not. No. Okay, so this is the end of part 1. Like I mentioned, part 2 will be uploaded on Saturday, like normal, at 10 a.m. So if you want to watch the second half of this video, come back on Saturday to finish it out. But again, I wanted to say thank you guys for being so kind and so receptive to me taking some time for myself. And I hope that you guys enjoyed part 1. So if you like the video, subscribe to the channel because we do fun therapist react style content, but we also do a cute little educational moment every now and again. And I'd love to have you stay. And then share the video to help the channel grow and to help each other grow, and I will see you on Saturday for part 2. Okay, thanks. Bye.